Eli for the reader panel. So when we get started, I'll give you guys a little bit more about my background. But
Good afternoon, everybody. How you all doing?
Good afternoon.
All right. Great to get everybody back together again. And I think we're just waiting on Gary now. Ellen did email this morning saying she couldn't join. Oh, then Shane. So I can check in with them. Everybody did RSVP. They said they'd be here. But just in the interest of time now, it's about there's Vicente. I thought I admitted him. Just in the interest of time, we can just go and get started. And if folks join, they can just jump in. Some of you have just met our senior reporter, Joseph Jiha, and we're very lucky to have Joseph. He's a veteran journalist. He worked for the San Jose Mercury News and some of the Bay Area News Group's affiliate publications in the Bay Area over the last several years. And he'll introduce himself before we get into the questions. But yeah, we're very lucky to have Joseph, and he's our senior reporter, and he's the one who will facilitate our questions for today's discussion. Other than that, just want to remind everybody that today's meeting is recorded, and Joseph, of course, is going to be writing a follow-up story following our discussion today. That'll be published on our site later this week or early next week. And just for all of us to, just be very respectful of everybody's point of view, ensure that, we also, not only do we share, but we also listen, and just, really just have an open mind during our discussion. So with that, if we can just go around the Zoom room, just take about 20 seconds each person if you just want to introduce yourself. Again, I know it's been a few months since we've convened. And of course, it's Joseph's first time meeting you. If you want to just introduce yourself, what you do professionally, and maybe why you wanted to join the reader panel. Can we start with you, Alex?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm a community advocate. I work on housing issues a bunch and community development, both with the City of San Jose Housing Commission and Community Development Commission, and in my job at Catalyze SV. And I like politics, and I love what results from politics, which is hopefully getting good people in office to do good work and make people's lives better for them through government. So this is the sort of lighter, fun side of that, but it's so important because we need really amazing people in there. And so I wanted to join to get a chance to share views, but also learn from y'all. So that continues to be something I'm benefiting from. Thanks.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate your participation. And how about Carmen?
Hi, I'm Carmen Brammer, and I'm a longtime resident of San Jose. I've been in this county almost 40 years, and I am a political strategist and community advocate, and I am focused on equity issues for the Black and Brown communities locally here, and also hopefully it impacts it at a state and federal level. And I'm excited to be a part of this because elections are so critical to affecting change and to ensuring that every citizen has the right to have the life that they choose, and that they're supported by policies and programs to enable that.
Thank you, Carmen. We appreciate your perspective. How about Lisa and company?
Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Charpentier, and this is my daughter, Mila, and my son, Monty, is in the background. And I'm a landscape architect, and most importantly, a mother. And we homeschool, and I think it's very important for our youth to learn about civics. And so my daughter is taking a civics class at home. And I think it's very important for the citizens all of us citizens to be involved in in civics and to co-create the community that we want to live in. So we need to be aware of what the choices are for us to make and to help guide the way that we want our community to proceed.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that, Lisa, and welcome back, Mila. How about Don?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Don Gagliardi. I have lived in District 3 for nearly 30 years now, and I'm an attorney, and I've been active in local affairs in my neighborhood and district-wide for more than 25 years. And so obviously I'm very interested in the political scene as it currently exists. I also read Spotlight every day. So I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this panel.
Well, thank you, Don. Really appreciate your kind words. So let's have the same team. We'll finish up with Shane.
Thanks,
Hi.
everybody. I'm glad to be part of the panel again and miss this over the past few months. My name is Vicente. I am the DOJ accredited representative out of Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County. I also attend law school full-time at Santa Clara. My goal is to become a practicing immigration attorney, but right now I only practice before the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State. But although I work primarily in San Jose, I'm based out of Santa Clara, born and raised.
Wow. Well, wonderful. Interesting to learn, Vicente. And then lastly, Shane, welcome.
Hey, Josh. Thanks. I apologize for being late. My computer decided to do like 20 updates before our meeting, and I got stuck in that loop. Anyway,
wow.
I'm president of my homeowners association here in Willow Glen Creek Homeowners Association, also chairman of the Santa Clara County Republican Party. I have worked with various groups to provide information on ballot initiatives, presenting both sides often of those initiatives. And so taking an even hand when it comes to those. And then I've written a ballot argument before, and I was formerly the chief of staff for 8 years for Council District 10, City of San Jose. A little bit about me, about 20+ year resident of San Jose.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Shane. Really appreciate everything. So yeah, really appreciate everybody being here. That wraps up our introductions from our panelists. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our senior reporter, Joseph Jiha. Again, I know a few of you joined after I briefly introduced them. Again, we're lucky here at San Jose Spotlight to have Joseph on our team as our senior reporter. He's a veteran journalist. He's written for the Mercury News and some of the Bay Area news groups, affiliate publications, in the Bay Area. And Joseph, if you want to take a quick second to introduce yourself, and then we can just get into the questions.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, as Josh said, I'm Joseph Jiha. I'm a Bay Area native, born and raised in Fremont. Did a lot of work in different areas of news over my career. I started, obviously with college and internships and such all around the Bay Area, print weeklies, SF Weekly, did some freelancing for KQED. I used to work at a local news radio station in San Jose called KLIV. That's a small former local AM news radio station that, was branded as Silicon Valley's news station. And I was able to be lucky enough to grab a job at the Merck's community newspapers as I was starting out in print, working in the East Bay and Alameda County, and then kind of matriculating into the Merck proper, so to speak, and got to work on a series of larger issue stories as well as my local coverage, and was very honored to be able to kind of know multiple communities through my work, including the South Bay, right? I've always kind of had a connection to San Jose and South Bay through my work, and now I get to do that more officially at Spotlight. And so I'm thrilled to have joined the team just in mid-August. It's a wonderful place that Ramona and Josh have set up with a lot of support and ambitious goals for a small but very hardworking team. And I'm thrilled to be here. So I won't bore anyone with more of my background, but that's the whole story in a nutshell. And I'm happy to be on this panel today as well to hear everyone's thoughts about obviously a critical issue, as some of our panelists have already mentioned, is local elections, where some of the most important voting, I think, happens. So I would love to just open it up. If anyone has any questions of me as we go through, I have no problem with anyone just like raising a real hand or a digital hand, just or shouting out respectfully. So if you have a question, or if you want to pause something, or if there's something you want to mention, feel free to just jump in. But otherwise, I think we can just get started. So we can just go. Oh, yes, absolutely. Carmen, please go ahead.
My hand, I can't do it digitally. Is there any way we could just make that document that's being shared a wee tad bigger, because I'm having some trouble, and it could be my laptop, some trouble seeing it.
Sure. I think Josh can help us with that. And then also you have the ability to slide, depending on how you have your Zoom set up, you have like a half and half slide panel that can make it a little bigger, but I think Josh can also increase the Zoom a bit. So
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
thanks, Josh. Thank you, Carmen, for asking. Appreciate that.
Sure,
Are we at a level where everyone can see it now? Okay, great. So let's jump right into the first question. We want to keep as much time as possible for the discussion. We got about 45 minutes left, so I'd love to let's keep it moving briskly. Try to keep your comments as concise as possible, but obviously we want to hear your true thoughts. So let's just jump right in. We're less than a month from Election Day. So how confident do you feel, about your vote for the next mayor of San Jose? Which obviously now we've got it narrowed down to 2 people. They've had plenty of time to kind of take shots at each other and see, whose record is going to stand up better in the long run here. And there seems to have been a pretty good amount of information put out, not just by Spotlight, by other news organizations as well. So I assume some of you guys are some of the most engaged folks here in Silicon Valley. Would love to hear if you feel that you have enough information at this point and kind of what you're considering. So who wants to lead out here? Anyone at all? Feel free. All right, Carmen's going to do it for us. Thanks, Carmen. Taking the lead on the hand raising. You go ahead.
So yes, we are less than a month away. I am somewhat confident that about my voting for the next mayor of San Jose. I still want to go to a few more forums to get some more feel for both candidates. I was excited to attend the Spotlight forum that they had. It was excellent. And the factors that I'm weighing is really, I want to see our candidates that are running be much more, really practice less rhetoric and really talk to the issues that they are fully aware that as a community we have been voicing and that we're experiencing. I feel like there's still the standard jargon of let's fund this, let's not fund that, we don't have this, we don't have that, versus as a community, where do we want to be? Who do we want to be as San Jose? I just feel like I'm not hearing that from both sides. And it's incumbent upon them to help us as people who have to vote for them and will live with whoever gets into that office, that they definitely become more real. I don't want to see these ongoing puppet-like folks. I really want them to be real and start talking about the serious issues we have here that need to be addressed.
Carmen, do you mind if I have a follow-up question to that? That was a great start to our conversation here. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're hoping to see in terms of like real issues and not doing as much, maybe snarking at each other and stuff like that. Are you talking about maybe more establishment of like just clear value statements in addition to like specific policy issues, or is it more just the latter? Like, would you like you said, wanting them to speak about who we want to be as a community? I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you mean there.
Right. So we know, and COVID showed that Black and Brown communities here in Santa Clara County, here in San Jose, Santa Clara County is one of the richest counties, the wealthiest counties in the country. And the fact that we have the issues that we currently have, where Black and Brown communities are at the bottom of the barrel, is not a good thing. And I don't hear anybody talking about that. That's a race issue. We have a deep entrenched race issue here in Santa Clara County, in San Jose, in this country as a whole. And no one is talking about that. And we know that when that is not addressed, then we have things that happen that actually turn people off from elections because they see certain types of behavior, they hear certain types of messages, and they don't want to come out and vote because they think, oh, it doesn't matter, right? And no matter what I do, it's not going to matter. So I want to hear from these I want to hear from these elected officials, concrete, tangible things that they're going to do and support in order to make sure that we are addressing the inequities that we have in this county and in this city. I mean, San Jose is the largest city, and so that's the one I focus on, but it's so critical that we start to hear that from them versus, to your point, snarking at each other, arguing with each other. Talk to me. I'm here to listen to you at an event, right? I'm coming here to listen. I want to hear from you. And yes, you can point out what your opponent may or may not agree with, but I really want to hear from them. This is what I see we can do as a county, as a city, and this is what I can do as the leader in that position that I'm in. And I'm not hearing that clearly. They're still going after the, more police funding. For the county, we want a jail, which there's just these things that the community has said we don't need. We really need to invest in the community, and that is just not happening.
Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate you expanding on that for us. That's very helpful. Anybody else with a perspective on this, on what you'd like to see out of the candidates and how confident you feel, again, making this decision? I'd love to get more than one person.
So,
Carmen's perspective was really thorough.
This is Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm really focused on practical solutions to problems that we're facing here. There's no Republican for me to choose from as the chairman of the Republican Party in this race. And therefore, I have to choose amongst the two Democrats that are running. And so for me, who will bring solutions to the quality of life problems or be a thought leader on these solutions? And so it's pretty clear to me which of the candidates will be that person. We have a very big contrast between the two candidates. We have one with extensive political experience, literally decades serving in public office. And we have one who is a relative newcomer and could be considered quite green. But the newcomer is the one with the new ideas as well. We've been doing things the same over and over again. We're spending $800 and some thousand per housing unit. And at that pace, we need to spend trillions of dollars before we could house every unhoused person in San Jose. That obviously is not working. And that is affecting the quality of life in our neighborhoods. We also see state policies that have affected our ability to be a safer community. And the answer to pass injustices that have created conditions where there's inequality is not on the fourth stage cancer end of the process to just say, oh, we're not going to hold people to account for their own behavior, but to fix the antecedents to that, the precedents to that behavior. And to support programs that help keep people engaged in the community as good citizens, as productive citizens, that will keep people employed, give them the skills they need. Those are some of the highlights of currently, like San Jose Promise, San Jose Works, those kind of programs. And we need more innovation like that to really move the ball forward for our city and to keep our communities clean and safe and livable so that people will want to stay here in San Jose and raise their kids here in San Jose.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate that. Could you just expound on one part of that? When you mentioned, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about when you say quality of life issues, to which ones are you referring and for whom?
For everyone. I think everyone wants a safe community. In fact, Carmen mentioned our Black and Brown brothers and sisters who live in our community they are often the most affected by crime that happens in our community. And so that's generally true with, so from a socioeconomic standpoint, if people are on the lower rung, regardless of their pigmentation, they are more affected by these things that occur in whether it's a economic downturn or it's a high gas prices or it's crime. So crime and just the general feeling of safety that people have has been eroded with increases in property crimes, and people don't even report a lot of it anymore because they're just, we have a very lightly staffed police department per capita compared to other cities. And the other thing is, just the cleanliness of our community. I ride my bicycle a lot for commuting or for errands and things. And now I encounter all kinds of messes on the trails along our rivers. There's the embankment right here in our development is just filled with trash across on the water district side of the property. And they've even built like a land bridge with the water low in the river.
Maybe we can touch on water district elections. I was just speaking to some water district candidates earlier today about the issues along their jurisdiction along our creeks and riverbeds. So,
but in the city as a whole, we need them working together to solve these problems.
Absolutely.
And they need to be innovative because what we're doing hasn't been working.
All right. Well, thank you, Shane. Appreciate you expanding on that. Looks like Alex had a comment in the chat. Love to hear from you as well, Alex, about you talking about the city council dynamics. You said, I think the biggest change in the mayor's race dynamics is the endorsement of the city council and particularly Dev Davis. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I was fascinated by that change or that development, that essentially 9 of the 10 council members have endorsed Cindy Chavez now for mayor. Usually, in my experience, people endorse the folks that they're more ideologically aligned with. And Dev Davis would have been a more natural fit to endorse Matt Mahan. They obviously work together on the council, and that's another dynamic, is that sometimes elected officials endorse people that they work with in order to continue to have good relationships. And so was not only surprised by that endorsement of hers, but also the passion and power with which she delivered her message and the critique that she had of Councilmember Mahan. I think I've been knocking on some doors around the mayor's race, and I think that's been a salient point in the discussion, that whether you're business oriented or labor oriented, live on the east side or the west side, a person of color or white, or progressive or conservative, basically across that spectrum, all those council members are endorsing someone that they don't serve with, Cindy Chavez, as opposed to someone they do, Matt Mahan. So I think that's really telling about where the council's at, and I've been surprised as well in conversations with former Republican Jim Canine, who I suspect Shane knows really well, saying, I may not agree with Cindy Chavez as much as I may with Matt Mahan, but I think she'll be able to get more done because she has the support of the whole council over the next 2 years of the mayor's term. So I think that was a really interesting point as well. And I think that's really upended one aspect of the race in a really fundamental way.
So for you, that's a factor where you're considering is who's going to be able to work well with the council if elected, and with the county, I'm sorry. And so you think Cindy Chavez is going to have a better chance at that because of the council support. And then obviously she is a supervisor. So it's kind of potentially implied that she'll have county support, at least in the decision-making body. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's more than what I was saying, but that I think that's true. I think having worked at the county and the city, she'll have an ability to bridge those divides. And I think she has a strong grasp of what the city's role is versus the county's. To Shane's point, I think Matt hasn't spent as much time in and around county government. And so I think it's a steeper learning curve for him. I think there are a lot of good definitions of good government. One is a government that works, that has people passing laws and proactively coming up with solutions. And I think wherever you land on who you support for mayor, it'll be easier for Cindy Chavez, at least initially, to do that if she has the support of all the council, including some of the new folks who might be in there as well. So
Sure, that makes good sense. Yeah, I just wanted to know. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to put any words in your mouth. Trying to just understand if that's one of the main factors into your decision at this point. So thank you for addressing that. But yeah, I mean, I think also we would maybe point out the fact that the city council is an elected body, a broad-based body with lots of different viewpoints. Right? Currently, no Asian Americans or Asian descent people on there, but trying to do their best to represent that in that absence. Latinos, African Americans. You know, there's a broad mix on that council right now, and you know, reasonable people can disagree, but they seem to do a good job at least communicating with each other, even when they're upset at each other for the most part in public. So, you know, there is also the other perspective, which is that, yeah, maybe Matt Mahan can get elected and maybe the council doesn't support him, but they will still work with him to govern, because there's a difference between the campaign process and then the governing, right? So if you're a professional and you're elected and you know your mission is to serve the city, you're going to have to do that even if you don't like the mayor, probably. We spent a little bit too much time on because of me on that first question, but I do think it was one of the most important. So let's move on to question 2. Thank you all for speaking up, who did, and thank you to those of you who are holding your thoughts, because I gave a little extra time around. Number 2 is this election cycle, like many before it, took a bit of an ugly turn. We kind of touched on this in question 1. The mayoral candidates have accused each other of things like supporting the NRA. We've seen, you know, accusations at Mahan for opposing women's rights and right to choose, and having their supporters make racially charged comments as well. So we can make this question a touch shorter, since we kind of touched on it a bit in the first one, but I'd love to know, as the question says, how are you reacting to that as a voter? Does it cause any apathy for you, or does it turn you off, kind of like Carmen was saying in her response to the first question? Who wants to touch on question 2 here? Don?
Yeah, well, let me weigh in, since I didn't get an opportunity to speak to the first question. It is upsetting to me. There have been a number of posts in San Jose Spotlight about the accusations of racism against one of Matt Mahan's supporters. And let me say from the outset, I'll be voting none of the above on the mayoral race. I've spoken, my main concern are the human rights violations with COVID mandates. And I operate on the Eugene Debs quote. He's a socialist from 100 years ago who said, quote, "It's better to vote for what you want and not get it than vote for what you don't want and get it," unquote. I don't want anyone in the mayor's office who's going to support violations of our human rights. Both Cindy Chavez and Matt Mahan voted or supported the firing of city or county employees or VTA employees who refused to take experimental COVID shots. So I can't support either of them. But I will say, and I have supported Cindy Chavez in the past. I supported her when she first ran for city council and when she first ran for mayor. But I am very disheartened by the accusations of racism against Brian Doe, a supporter of Matt Mahan, who again I do not support. I don't believe that it's appropriate. It's dirty politics. It's divisive, and I really think that sort of thing has no place in our politics. So that is a concern for me going forward, that if we're going to see that sort of divisiveness in our politics. I know Brian Doe. I don't believe he's a racist. I'm also aware, and we'll be able to see whether this in fact backfired, because 8 years ago, Dave Cortese, who was the Labor-backed candidate, garnered a significant majority of the Vietnamese community in his run for mayor, even though he was defeated by Sam Liccardo. If Cindy Chavez doesn't draw an equivalent proportion of the Vietnamese community, I can only assume that these accusations would have backfired. So I'm concerned, and I expect that there will be a backlash as a result of those charges.
Got it. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. So yeah, so kind of touching on what Carmen mentioned at the beginning, you don't really appreciate the back and forth attacks, but you'd rather hear more about maybe actual issues. But I'd love to just follow up. I mean, I do. So it sounds like you supported Chavez in the past, but because of her support of COVID safety mandates, including support of widespread vaccination efforts, sounds like you've lost your support for, your desire to support either of them. I mean, I do want to just mention that you use the word experimental about the COVID shots. I mean, that's your choice to use that word. It's the same shot that was being offered to everyone. It's not that VTA employees were.
Well,
were
let me
being forced to
explain that.
take a
Let
dose.
me
Yeah.
explain that use of that word. So what we're talking about is an emergency use authorization, quote unquote, vaccine. None of the FDA approved vaccines are actually available to the public more than a year after that approval. So it was summer of 2021. There was an approval, but it was bait and switch because there was no allowance for an approved vaccine to be taken. So the only thing that was available to the public and what was mandated by both the city council and by the VTA board was the taking of an emergency use authorization, non-FDA approved vaccine.
Mhm.
By definition, that is a human rights violation, okay? Now, in addition to that, there are obviously issues with these vaccines. Just yesterday, a Pfizer executive testified before a Netherlands member of parliament that in fact they had done no research on preventing transmission of the virus through the use of those vaccines. There have been a number of adverse effects taken. These are not widely publicized, but there's absolutely tremendous evidence, especially young people have been harmed by these vaccines. And we had city and county officials, both Matt Mahan and Cindy Chavez, promoting and in fact mandating the use of these emergency use authorization vaccines.
Absolutely.
That was inappropriate.
Don, your points are well taken. I just want to note the EUA, the emergency use authorization, is a fact. It's a policy set by the government, which oversees the FDA. So it's not FDA approved through the normal course. I absolutely agree with you. That's why the emergency use authorization exists. It's for products that are needed.
That's
on
why
an
you can't
emergency
mandate
basis.
them. I'm not saying you can't take them voluntarily. What I'm saying is they cannot be mandated. That's a human rights violation.
Absolutely. Well, it's you made your point very clearly. I think you're probably not alone in that. I think it's going to leave you with sparse choices for elections going forward. If that's going to be your dividing line, you're going to find a lot of COVID support across Republican and Democratic lines. Depending on the community and how it's been affected by COVID. But I do know
absolutely. But I think we need to understand we can't simply accept two choices that are unacceptable. We need more choice. We get that in our sodas. We get that in all sorts of marketplace choices. We need more choice in voting. We can't simply have two unpalatable choices.
I like the soda analogy. I feel good about our soda choices, but your point is well taken. But I do appreciate that most of them are owned by Pepsi or Coke. So your point makes sense. Let's move on to Vicente, who's been waiting patiently. And Don, thank you for kindly engaging there in a respectful way.
Thanks much. While I agree with Don's point and spirit about adopting a parliamentary system, I don't really think that we're going to have one. So two choices it is, I guess. In any case, though, I think the question takes on a new relevance given the events going on in Los Angeles with the resignations and possible resignations of the predominantly Latin American council members for racist recordings. I think that the current political climate in the mayor's race is emblematic of what's typical. Accusations, backroom deals, corruption, all these sorts of things that get bandied about in a regular debate have taken on a heightened importance because of what's going on down there. So I think that for me, it doesn't necessarily change my opinions of the mayoral candidates. The things that have happened so far have pretty much confirmed what I've already researched and thought about them. So I think that for me, it's unfortunate, of course, but pretty typical.
Okay, well, thank you, Vicente. So is there any specific instance you were referring to? I mean, just like, were you referring to the ones that Don was talking about with the accusations of racism?
I was referring more to, well, for me, I think the biggest issue is the 49ers money. I won't go too much into detail on that. My opinion, it was expressed in the grand jury report that was issued on 49ers influence. I don't see much difference between a technocrat and a corporate shill, if we're being perfectly honest. So the fact that they're trying to distance themselves or associate themselves on one issue or another just doesn't really change the fact that that's what we're dealing with by and large from their camps, where we have Cindy Chavez accepting money from the 49ers, and then Matt Mahan's New Solutions reeking of this sort of technocratic idea that, we can solve everything with efficiency. It just doesn't really change my perspective on who they are as candidates. These other issues with the NRA, women's rights, the possible racist supporter. Some of those, I reiterate, are unfortunate, but by and large, they don't change what I've already come to view them as already.
Thank you, Vicente. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to make a quick comment here before we move on to question 3? Okay, and let's go to question 3 then. And I hope to hear from some who haven't spoken yet or haven't spoken at length. What other races are you closely watching and why? So there's, I think everyone here is a San Jose resident, or for the most part is. So if I'm incorrect about that, feel free to speak up. But I'd love to hear what other races you are all watching, possibly ones that you will vote in, like water district or county supervisors, et cetera, or perhaps something outside of the city that you think has relevance to the debates and the choices we have going on in San Jose. Go ahead, Lisa, please, and thank you.
Hi, I live in downtown San Jose in District 3. So I have pretty strong feelings about the race for District 3. I feel like we have a lot of difficulties in downtown San Jose, and we've been trying to make some changes for many, many years, and the changes haven't really gotten anything, created a better sense of community in our neighborhoods. And so I feel like that we need to, Omar Torres is his approach resonates with me, because he feels like has a grassroots approach, and he is looking for quality of life for the neighborhood. He is looking to clean up the neighborhood and to create more of a comfortable environment for the neighborhood, as opposed to just looking to make the downtown exciting, or to create some idealized downtown area. And so for me, that resonates with me. Living in downtown, I want to have a safer neighborhood. And I've noticed, especially since COVID, that the quality of life in downtown San Jose has gotten worse for many reasons. But I feel the approach of looking to creating a better sense of community for the residents resonates well with me.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Lisa. And yeah, for those who haven't been following as closely as Lisa, this is District 3. I'm sure you're all familiar. Downtown San Jose is a core part of it. Raul Peralez, longtime representative, now terming out. And you've got Omar Torres and Irene Smith running there for that seat. Anyone else with a perspective? And thank you, Lisa. I just want to say that, as someone who's worked and frequented the downtown San Jose area, yeah, there's changes, the storefronts, the homelessness, there are issues there, right? The cleanliness, those are apparent to anybody of any inclination who walks through there. So certainly there are issues that need to be addressed. And then obviously there's the business imperatives, there's the nightlife, there's things that need to be done to have a vibrant city. But there are also issues, like you said, in folks who are living in neighborhoods surrounding it or right there in it. In downtown, who may also need their needs addressed. And so it sounds like you're saying you think Omar's taking a more holistic view and Irene is focused more on the core itself. So thank you. Vicente, you're up, please.
I'd also like to point out that there are a lot of similarities, I feel, between the San Jose mayor's race and the Santa Clara mayor's race, where you have a really longstanding public servant battling it out against a relative newcomer with these similar allegations. I think principally the similarity that stands out for me is I also don't support either candidate, but I think what is useful for me to compare the two races is that it's not just Santa Clara that's dealing with this. It's not just San Jose that's dealing with this. Is a lot of, for lack of a better word, corrupt behavior going on in local politics. And I sincerely hope that it motivates more people to get involved and try and lobby for transparency, hopefully even run for office, because local politics used to be my refuge where I could turn to have people with ideas come in and really try and make a change. That's why I supported Alex Lee. But I think now with this mayor's race and then San Jose's mayor's race, it's just becoming harder to stave off the cynicism. So I'm hoping for a better go around next time.
Thank you, Vicente. So yeah, just to again quickly recap what I believe he's referring to in Santa Clara, you've got longstanding mayor and council member Lisa Gilmore running against first-term council member Anthony Becker. Lisa Gilmore has the backing of a broad coalition of people, including very big money from developers, which we've reported on closely, like Related, who has a major project in her city, which we had a story about that she had asked the governor for a favor on behalf of Related. And then you've got Anthony Becker, who, while not taking direct money into his campaign like Lisa is not either, has hundreds of thousands of dollars, bordering on millions of dollars of support from the 49ers. And with Jed York trying to make Santa Clara a company town, essentially. So you've got some really strong interests pushing against each other there. And I appreciate the comparison, Vicente. So it sounds like you've become a bit jaded, at least about the mayoral race choices you have. Given these long-term, like you said, public servants who maybe now have turned to the dark side, it sounds like you're saying. So we can move on from that, but I appreciate the perspective. Anyone else want to comment on that question number 3?
Well, I'll comment. This is Don specifically. I'm also a D3 resident, so I'm very interested in the D3 race. And unlike the mayoral race, we don't have 2 persons who are already in office, who've already taken position. So I have a different perspective on that race. I've known Omar Torres since he was a teenager. I appreciate his commitment to his neighborhood and to neighborhoods generally. I do have concerns about the fact that he's tied to labor and then perhaps will simply answer to whatever Cindy Chavez tells him to do as mayor. That's a concern that I think a lot of people harbor, but I do think his heart is in the right place. Irene Smith comes at this from a completely outsider perspective, which is enticing to a lot of my neighbors and a lot of people in the district. However, I'm also very concerned that she seems to be limited to a few issues, and she is completely uninterested in speaking to the COVID mandates that took place, which is of deep concern to me. And I've expressed this to her directly. The idea that she's going to be courageous if she's unwilling to speak to issues that she feels are going to be troubling with the electorate is a concern to me. So I'd like to see more courage from Irene Smith before she would get my vote. And I'd like to see more independence from Omar Torres before he can get my vote. So I'm a person whose vote is up for grabs as to the D3 race.
Thank you, Don. Shane, you had a quick comment you want to add before we move on to question 4?
Yeah, very quickly, I'm watching the District 1 supervisorial race, Johnny Camus and Sylvia Reyes. And there it comes down to the 4th vote for more taxes. There were 3 votes for new taxes on the Board of Supervisors. If Sylvia Reyes is elected, she's a 4th vote for new taxes. Johnny Camus will oppose new county-wide taxes. We're already taxed enough. We need to spend the money more effectively.
And Johnny has a record of being a bit more conservative with finances, and obviously a former Republican, recently converted to independent. So yeah, I think his record is clear on those kinds of things. Thank you, Shane. All right, we are getting close. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Alex, please go ahead.
Yeah, just I think it's important to note for watchers, readers, Shane knows Johnny came as well. That's who he worked for many years when he talked about earlier being chief of staff. So he definitely understands a lot in that race.
Appreciate that. Yeah, if you have a a disclosure you want to make, happily accept those along with your comments, so we're being clear with folks. But yeah, absolutely, an important race for sure. And the county, obviously, as Carmen noted earlier, one of the wealthiest in the country, has a very large budget and an extremely large responsibility set. So any seat on that decision making body is one that carries a lot of power. Let's move on to question 4 here, because I am wanting to be a good timekeeper and respect people's time. We've got about 11 to 12 minutes left before we need to wrap up. So question 4 is, what can be done to draw more voters to the polls in November? This is obviously a no wrong answer situation. I think, if people have been trying to get more people to the polls for a long time. It's had varying degrees of success. Who wants to jump in and offer an idea? Vicente says better candidates. All right. Well, looks like you got to run, buddy. I don't know. I don't think there's many choices left, but you and Don are going to take up a ticket together as, the We're Fed Up party. But I don't think there'd be too many people who would disagree with you that there's been some things that could cause a lot of skepticism in the South Bay politics over the last decade or so. But who wants to jump in here on question 4? Let's go to Lisa, and then we'll go to Carmen. Go ahead, Lisa.
I agree with Vicente on in many of the races, but I think that rather than having arguments about attacking each other about personal things, we should inspire people and talk about real issues and talk about solutions for the issues. And then I think that we should, for the future, we should focus more on teaching our youth civics, because a lot of young people don't have that in school, and they don't have the guidance for them to know that it's important and it's a responsibility to protect our democracy, for us all to participate in voting. So we need to do that for the future as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I wrote a story in the past about civics returning to the classroom in a few limited instances in the East Bay, but certainly it needs to come back, because I think civic literacy and media literacy will really help folks be able to kind of parse out things as they move forward in life, right, and become their own decision makers and constituents themselves, right? And so if you can decide if what you're reading is true or not, or if it resonates with you or not, and if you can decide, if you understand more about our political process, then you can understand how you want to act in it. Carmen, let's go to you.
So you took a lot of the words I was going to say. You voiced a lot of my thoughts, but the other thing I want to add to that, to everything that's been said so far in regards to question 4, is I'm an immigrant, and I've lived in under a couple of different types of rules. We were sovereign rule, and then we were a dictatorship. And one of the things I feel that has happened here in this country is those who want to hold on to power have done a great job of minimizing the value of voting. And that has fed this disinterest or this separation from voting. And a lot of folks don't understand how critically important voting is, and forget that Voting Rights Act was passed in the 60s, not that long ago. And so we have to really, really start. It goes back to what was just said about civic education. It doesn't, not just children, everybody needs to go get a civic class, because a lot of folks have forgotten the fight and the loss of lives. People laid down their lives. They went out knowing that they would get killed so that we could end up voting today. And the fact that we don't come out and vote is just a disrespect to all those folks who sacrificed so that we could have those rights. And unfortunately, because of the way our political system has become, it has those who have money and power, right? The US Supreme Court made that happen. They get to make the decisions for all of us, which is unacceptable. And then you get candidates that are put forth by these structures. And that's why we end up with what we do. So we have to do a better job of educating folks and making them understand just what a blessing and a gift voting is, because so many people in other countries don't have that gift. And that, to me, is what we have to do, is just educate communities into, hey, your vote does matter. It makes a huge difference. I understand some data has shown that you can shift an election by 1% of the votes. Imagine if we could just get 1% more people voting than we do. And just the value, people just don't understand how important, what a beautiful gift we have in being able to vote in this country and choosing who we want.
Thank you, Carmen. Any ideas either from Carmen or from anyone else? I saw Shane putting up a few emojis in support of Carmen's statements there in terms of agreeing with the importance of voting. Shane or anyone else who wants to offer a perspective on how we might convince folks of the importance of their vote and remind them that they have a chance to affect change in the way they want to see at the ballot box?
Well, I think Carmen's message is a great one and something that we all need to be promoting to those that our loved ones, our friends, our family and strangers as well. I think that the Lisa's point about civic education was a great one, and the way that Carmen framed it is perfect framing for civic education, about the struggles that went through to ensure that everyone had the right to vote here, and the fact that we have this blessing that many others in the world do not have. And so I think just emphasizing that, there are a lot of other ideas out there about, a holiday, a voting holiday, but I mean, we have a whole month to vote basically with vote by mail. And vote by mail is everyone gets a ballot at home. They really have no excuse not to vote. The challenge is, they need to obviously become informed. And so how do we prioritize that for people? I'm not sure, but one vote does make a difference. It made the difference between getting my former boss, Johnny Camus, into the runoff for the seat that he ultimately won back 10 years ago. So a handful of votes, 1 or 2 or 10 votes, can change an entire election outcome.
And an entire district for 8 years. Yeah. So thank you, Shane, and thank you, Carmen. And I think that segues beautifully into question 5. How many of you have already voted? And if you want to just either raise the digital hand just to answer that part of the question, or raise your actual hand, if you can, that would be fine. Has anyone voted? Feel free to raise. I don't think so. I think ballots are just coming out, so you would have been right on the ball and already fully decided if you did get one and have already voted. I think Alameda County also just started sending theirs out in addition to Santa Clara County. So it is mid-October now, I think, right? Yeah, it's the 12th, almost there. So the second part of this question is, for those of you who have voted, please share who you voted for and why. So we don't have that here. It seems like no one has cast their votes yet. And we already have a few people here who kind of indicated who they plan to vote for, and others who said that they're not going to vote for any of the 2 choice candidates in the mayoral race. And Alex picked up his ballot this morning. Thank you, Alex, for that contribution. All right, so we can move on to question 6 with our last couple of minutes here, and we plan to wrap up on time, which is, if there's time, we want to talk about what unanswered questions you have about candidates or races. So we did a good job talking about the San Jose mayoral race and what you all would like to see from those 2 candidates in terms of the remaining time to campaign. But if there's any other races you want to mention as well, we'll take that time here. So Alex, why don't you go ahead and lead us off? Thank you.
Oh, did Lisa's hand go up first before mine?
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed it. Yeah, go ahead, please, Lisa.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
My daughter Mila had something that she wanted to add.
So I have
Yes,
a comment
please.
for the
Thank you.
previous question about how to draw more voters. I think for this election cycle, there are smaller measures we can take, but once the candidates who end up being elected in this election take office, they need to really increase community involvement in the political process, because right now I think a lot of people, especially young people, feel that you cast your vote, but they don't really see the impacts of their opinions and their needs affecting how their representatives are voting once they're elected into office. So I think that could include more community meetings and trying to have even citizens who maybe aren't as involved, aren't writing letters constantly to their representatives, invited to those meetings so that we can represent the whole voice of our community. And once that happens, once people feel that their representatives are taking their cues from the community, then they will be more likely to vote in the future, because they can see the impact that that voice is having, not just in the election, but in the actual process of governing.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, can we get your name again? I didn't catch it.
My name is Mila.
Mila, thank you so much for the thoughtful contribution. Yeah, I would say I would agree with you 100% that the more engagement from elected officials, whether people love or hate what they're doing, it does remind folks that there's somebody they have the ability, to elect or not re-elect or what have you, when they see them out in the community more often, or when they're specifically making time for engagement. So I don't think you'd find much opposition to that idea. Now, please, let's go back to Alex, and thank you, Milo, for the contribution.
Thanks. I think my question to candidates might be, how are you going to exhibit political courage? I, like Vicente, have supported our assembly member in the East Bay and North San Jose, Alex Lee. And whatever you think about his positions, he's working really hard to promote some really different ideas, from social housing or a wealth tax to making it easier for people from different languages and backgrounds to participate in government meetings through bills he's proposed. And those ideas have all been pretty different than what other elected officials are putting out there at a local level. So I think I want candidates who have political ideas and are willing to expend political capital to get them there. I think there's no issue where that's more important than housing and homelessness. When I asked people a couple of weeks ago, and this was just one part of San Jose, but I asked them what was the issue that was most important to them, I would say 90%, without even me prompting them, said homelessness issues. So who's going to take a really strong stance, whether that's doubling down on what we're already doing to prevent a further wave of housing or homelessness, or come up with new ideas to continue to try to address that. I think that's something that probably everyone on this panel can agree on, is we want to reduce the number of homeless folks in our community, and we need really a lot of resources and political courage and consensus to get there.
Interesting points, Alex. Thank you. And yeah, certainly Alex Lee has faced a lot of opposition even after getting into office, and there can be reasonable disagreements about how effective it is to keep pushing for legislation that's just going to get shot down by your entire legislator and then watered down over and over again. I've spoken with Alex about that myself in interviews past. It's a tough situation he's facing, right? Because he's obviously going out on a limb. So is it effective to push the envelope as he's trying to do in terms of ideology and policy, but to rarely get something passed as he intended? But that's kind of the process we have. I know we're coming up on 1 o'clock. I see Lisa and Carmen both wanted to speak, so I'll stop speaking. Lisa, please go ahead, and then we'll go on to Carmen.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that my family is very involved with climate, and we don't hear any of the candidates talking much about climate. We've addressed questions, and we've also often, numerous times, suggested that our elected leaders should take climate training when they enter the office. So we would like to hear more about what plans for addressing climate change from our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's go on to Carmen for our last comment, and then we'll
Yes.
wrap up, folks.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me this time, and I appreciate that. One of the other things I wanted to, it's going back to question 4, what can be done to draw more voters? I'm going to invite everyone here on this call and folks in your network. We have come together. There's a multicultural coalition that's come together between Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, of which I'm a member, the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley, and PACT, people acting in community together. We've come together to form a coalition to help draw more voters out to the polls. And we are having on October 22nd, we're having a Together We Vote celebration. It's a nonpartisan, non-lobbying event. It's just having everybody come out and just hanging out with each other and really celebrating, really turn voting into something that's a celebration that we all get to participate in. And so it's on October 22nd. It will be from 10 o'clock to 2 p.m. And anyone who's interested, please feel free to reach out to me. I've been posting this stuff on my Facebook and on my LinkedIn profile, because voting, again, goes across everybody. So, and again, this is a nonpartisan, non-lobbying event. So would love to have you guys come out, and those in your networks to come out, and let's just get to meet each other and get to know each other.
Thank you, Carmen. We appreciate it. And also a couple of comments there from Shane and Alex. Shane said there's a relative dearth of discussion of statewide offices that are on the ballot aside from horse race type coverage. And then Shane was also asking you, Carmen, if you have a flyer for that nonpartisan event. So would you like to share maybe an email address if you want, Carmen, or something? We can hold on to the chat for a second so everyone can copy that, where people can reach out to you, or something that you feel comfortable sharing with the group. And there she has it. Okay, so if anyone wants that email address, go ahead and copy it out of the chat before we wrap up this meeting. And I just want to thank everyone for the time and for the engaged discussion. I know, we hit on a few different points here, and I really appreciate everyone's time. And I know Vicente just said he had to dip off at 1 o'clock, so we appreciate him as well. But thanks everyone for the respectful engagement. I think we had a really good discussion, and I'm looking forward to our next one. I believe we're going to have, Josh can correct me on the schedule here, but another meeting closer to the actual election day, and then shortly after, initial results. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah, exactly. Am I on mute?
No, you're good. You got it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here. So the next one is on Wednesday, November 2nd. And that's gonna be from 1 to 2 p.m. And then one, just as you alluded to, following the election, that'll be on Wednesday, November 16th, again from 1 to 2 p.m.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Any closing comments from you, or anything you want to add here that for the panelists to know?
I just want to say great job, everybody. Thank you, Joseph, for leading the discussion and facilitating the questions. And thank you, everybody, for being respectful and having an open mind and really just participating. It was just a joy listening to you all, and already looking forward to the next one on November 2nd.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate you helping lead this from the beginning and giving me some advice on how to run it. So I hope everyone felt we had a good discussion. And then, my email is on the San Jose Spotlight website. So if anyone wants to reach out about anything related to this discussion, we could talk further. I want to make sure people have the space they need. And maybe, if there's anything I need to consider for our following discussions, I appreciate the input. But thanks everyone for the time. And I think we'll close the meeting now. So thanks.
Thank you, Joseph. Thanks, Josh. Thanks,
Have a good one,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Appreciate you all.
Earthquakes.
Take care.